Welcome to Cut the Bull, an insightful podcast which addresses the news of the day and the cultural issues plaguing our society, bringing logic and context to these topics and discussing solutions too real for mainstream pundits. Now, here are your hosts, Charles Love, Shamika Michelle, and Wilfred Riley.
Welcome to Cut the Bull. Thanks for joining us this week. I am Charles Love with my co-host Shamika Michelle. And Wilfred Riley is running to the camera or something. I guess he'll be here shortly. And our guest this week is Kira Davis. I know you know her and you see her all the time, everywhere. She just got off of Lear Terrell show. She is the host of Just Listen to Yourself, editor-in-chief at Red State. She's everywhere. Kira, welcome for joining. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I feel so honored. I actually had the privilege of meeting Shamika for the first time at CPAC in Florida. She was wonderful on stage, and I'm just really honored to be here.
Steve, thanks. It's great to have you. And CPAC must be the meeting place. I wasn't there this year. We ran into each other last year, so maybe next year we'll hook up again or something. But I invited you on, and when I do, we just talk about whatever topics are hot, but then I want the guests to bring up a topic. So we're going to get to the topic you wanted to talk about originally a week and a half ago when I brought you on. But as
so
per
much
the
has
case,
happened since then.
Right. Well, some things have happened. So I saw this and the article, your video that's gone viral. So I figured we'd start by talking about that. But we can talk about the specifics, but I kind of want to talk about it in a broader sense. Mm-hmm. But there was obviously some, a bit of, I don't know if we want to say open attacks, but some problems that are going on between Kim Klacik and Candace Owens. And they had some words, and people jumped in and kind of had their opinions. And you definitely had an opinion. So let's talk a bit about how it started, and then why you saw it as a problem, Kira.
Well, I don't have a problem with Kim and Candace going at each other. I mean, I'm just sitting here with popcorn. Y'all do whatever you want to do. But I do have a problem with Candace. I have for quite a while. And last year, I wrote an article called The Trouble with Candace that ended up going viral because I think I was one of like the first black conservatives to kind of publicly go, oh, this is getting weird, and I can't really, I'm having trouble speaking to the people I want to speak to because I'm having to defend against her, right? When my message on my podcast, Just Listen to Yourself, I attack ideas. I talk about ideas. I talk about thinking critically about your ideas, about critiquing your own thoughts, and knowing what you believe so that you can defend your ideas. And to me, that is a great way to build bridges. And in fact, I did an episode is called Why Are Republicans So, quote, racist? And it wasn't about Republicans being racist. It was about giving liberals a reason to at least look at their Republican friends and family as not evil, but just people who have a different opinion about how good things should get done. So to my mind, and I'm conservative because I'm black and because I served my community, and it really changed my whole worldview. Charles, I'm from Gary, Indiana. I'm not from there originally, but that's the community that I served in. That's the community that made me a Republican and a conservative. And there he is.
I will.
And so, I take this issue very personally. And when I first noticed that Candace, I first was excited about her. I thought, oh, this is another young black conservative on the scene. She's doing things in social media that I'm a little bit too old to understand or know about. And she's funny. Like, she had some funny, cute videos on YouTube that I really liked. But the more she would talk, the more I would say, okay, help, defend these ideas. Now I want to know the arguments behind them. You listen to a Ben Shapiro, and Shapiro can give you talking points, and then he can dig in and he can tell you exactly why he believes everything. And I never got that from her. And in fact, it seemed like everything that came out of her mouth, it felt insulting. It felt offensive. It felt like, oh, this doesn't sit right with my spirit. And so I made the mistake of saying something about it once a couple of years ago on Facebook. And it was 1,000 comments of, you sound jealous. And I was like, wow, this is, and some of the comments were like, "Oh, Kira, I thought you were one of the good ones." You know, and that you get that a lot, especially at a blog like called Red State. You know, you can get a lot of comments on those, like, "I thought you were one of the good black conservatives," but you're just jealous. And so I finally write this article about Candace, explaining how I feel, dealt with all the attacks, thought I would just write that one article and put it away because I don't want to be focusing on her. But this week it's been difficult. I think her Juneteenth tweet where she said, you know, I'll never celebrate Juneteenth. I'll only celebrate July 4th because I'm an American. To me, I thought, this is it. I can no longer let this person speak for me, and I'm not letting her speak for me, but there are other people who are asking me to answer for her. So I think it is high time that we stand up and say, this point of view is a problem. I don't know who she's speaking to, but it's not the same people I'm speaking to. And I don't know what she's talking about when she's talking about race and even the problems that we are responsible for ourselves in the black community. Even when she's talking about them, I'm not feeling like she's solution oriented. I feel like it's just blame oriented, and it's making the job of healing our communities and reconciling Black America to the general American experience. It's making that more difficult. And so I know that this is a professional risk because a lot of white blue check pundits really love Candace, and I understand that. But I think at this point, I've got to set my professionalism aside and take up my personal stake in this.
Okay. Shamika, what are your thoughts about that? About what she said or about Candace in general?
Well, so I have this ratchet little girl within, and I say that all the time. And so I'm kind of fighting with that because the ratchet little girl within is like, oh my God, so juicy, you know. And I want to say something, but then there's the grown woman that's, you know, I can see 50 in the distance, and I'm just like, I have to be dignified, I have to be classy, and I can't get into this. And then the ratchet little girl's like, but it's so good. You know? So I mean, what Kira is saying, I absolutely agree with. And by the way, Kira, I think you did an excellent job on your video because you said it so well, and I think it was constructive criticism, which is something that I don't necessarily think I have down packed all the time, you know.
It takes all kinds of people in this world.
Yeah. And so with Candace, I have to agree because when I first started really coming on the scene, people would inbox me and say, well, what do you think about Candace? You know, how do you feel about her? And some people wanted to know because I think they were trying to figure out if I liked her, then they liked me. But then there were other people that wanted to see if I didn't like her, then they liked me. You know, and so you know, there's this misconception that Blexit is saving the black community, right? And I think that's what the issue is, and that's why white people are so like, you know, how dare you talk about Candace? Oh my God, she's saving Black America, and we love her, you know. But she's not, at least not alone. And so, you know, I think they need to understand that Candace cannot do the work alone. It's going to take a group of people. It's going to take a lot of different voices. And I know for myself, I've come across so many Black conservatives here now after the election that I didn't know existed before. So there were just a certain group of Black conservatives that were propped up and pushed to the forefront. And some of them are not even around anymore. Now that Trump is gone, you don't see them, you don't hear from them. So it's like, okay, what were your real intentions? Because now we don't see you. And so I think, you know, I get why everybody is like, this is an issue. The Juneteenth is lame for me was like, come on, like seriously.
What's the purpose? Yeah, like
there was no purpose.
You know, if you're not into it, like fine, I get that. We don't have to be on the same page, but
right.
that was a red meat tweeter, as I said in the video. That's a clapper tweet. That's designed for 30,000 retweets, not designed for actual discussion or digging into an idea, and which might even be acceptable if I thought that she was out there having those discussions and digging into those ideas, but all she has is talking points.
Right.
And there's never any explanation or real curiosity. And the other thing that I want to say about Blexit, Shamika, you brought this up. Candace can't save the black community by herself. She can't save it at all. Nobody's going to save the black community. You know, if I always on my podcast, I'm like, I always like to take it to church. I'm like, there's only one place you can get salvation, but there's no Calvary coming. You know, black people, we are the cavalry. It's us. It's all of us. And so if I'm going to try to take Candace back to Gary, Indiana with me to save the black people of Gary, Indiana, it's not going to work. I'm going to get laughed out of town. Nobody takes her seriously except white conservatives. That's it. So
She's
I'm
what
not
I
trying
call
to be
county
a
school.
hater. She's not helpful.
Yeah, she's county school, definitely, which is why I never really was too bothered by her, because I felt like, you know, she would never be in the same circles that I'm in anyway. But I didn't know it was such a big issue on a much larger scale, because I just always assumed, hey, I went to city schools. Candace probably went to county schools, which is different.
Oh man, man, that was a mouthful. I got a lot to say, but Will coming in from the west. I guess the hat got hot. Good to see you. What do you want to add to this before I say anything?
I honestly just thought the hat looked kind of silly, but yeah, I had a consulting sort of thing in Montana, and they had the original Stetson store out there, and I was
Nice.
wearing like the jacket and like the button. So I got a black hat, which I thought was kind of funny as a Western movie theme, and I plan on wearing it a lot. But just right now, I didn't really see a need to. Plus,
I
I'm
like
in the
it.
room with these. Thank you. But also, I'm in the room with these ladies, so technically, as a gent, I shouldn't be wearing my hat. But
Fair
the
enough.
whole thing with Candace, yeah, you gotta keep the proprieties. But I mean, in all seriousness, though, the thing with Candace Owens, I think, is an interesting one. I mean, coming at it from kind of a business perspective, we hear a lot about the rise of black conservatism, of kind of the Candace Owens variety. And I guess the question that I would have is, what's the impact of these black conservatives that were sort of trotted out as part of the Trump movement in particular? Like, I have no problem with some brother in the business world or in athletics wearing a MAGA hat. I actually think it's kind of healthy. But did Blexit, for example, as a political scientist, in fact, leaving background aside, did that have a significant impact on the black vote? And I don't think we see a lot of evidence of that. I mean, the black vote went from 8% Republican, whatever, to perhaps 10%. You saw some movement among black men, but that was countered by extreme dislike of Trump among black women. So if the goal for Blexit was something specific, like we're going to jump this through these mass rallies where you would expect a fair number of black people to be in attendance. I don't know what the crowds look like, but we're going to jump this from, say, 8% to 20%. I don't know if empirically you can say that happened. So, I mean, that kind of gets into a question of audience, which is, I mean, when you build a brand, you look at what the audience for that brand is, and you'd have to ask the question, what is Candace Owens' audience? And I think you guys said, is it Kira or Kyra, by the way?
Kira.
Kira. Yeah, Kira said, I mean, I think the audience is white conservatives. And that's probably true. I mean, so if Candace Owens has a set of ideas for the black community, really one sentence, are those...
Why'd you do that, Kira?
No,
The man wanted to pronounce it properly.
Right.
Like,
Good.
call me Kyra. Click. Wow,
We're about to get
mid-sentence.
this amazing argument.
Was it the hat? Was it the pronunciation of your name? I mean, really?
Hanger.
Will, please come back on. Well, you all, I like to come in because, you know, I try to look at things differently. And I the most important thing for me is to be consistent. And I do a pretty good job, probably better than most. I don't know if I'm going to be this time because I'm hearing my thoughts and I'm kind of riffing. I'm like, well, that didn't sound consistent to what you just said, but I got to blurt it out because you're going to laugh though, because I have views about what he said, the Blexit, how effective it was and who our audience is. And I think I'm right. So it's not that bad, but why it's inconsistent is, to be honest, I never followed Candace Owens. Never did. Right. So I didn't listen to much stuff. So then you'd say, obviously, the inconsistent part is, well, how do you know what her target is? But I've seen video of the people at the events. So
Yeah.
outside of the DC stuff where they bring, but I want to add another piece, Kira, because you made a good point talking about, older people, because the view is that older white conservatives may look at her and be like, whew, I kind of get a sigh of relief. Okay, there's some people who think like me. She can let them know I'm really a nice guy, a nice gal. But the one piece that I ever defended Candace on, and wasn't directly because I wasn't really following her, but I said, we keep saying that Candace can't save the black community. And that's true. No real one person. I mean, we can't directly ourselves. But what I will say is I never thought that maybe I'm wrong. We'd have to ask Candace. But I never thought that was her target audience. What I felt the target audience was, even though it said Blexit, and they're saying they're attracting black people, I looked at it as I was like, this is clever. This is the way I saw it and in my mind heard it. This is clever. What they're going to do is they're going to give young college-age white men, put them in a position where they feel comfortable to push back against this, cancel culture and all the stuff that's going on campus. So you get these young people, and whatever black people come along, that's fine. But really, it said, hey, me and this small group of black people agree with you, think like you, and hey, 22-year-old Chip and Trevor, it is okay for you to say that, whatever you want to say about the black community, about this, that, or the other, and when somebody shouts you down and calls you racist, I'm going to tell you it's okay. That's what I thought the movement was doing successful. Now, whether that was an intent, that was the one group of people that I thought saw it and was like, that's cool. Because all the people I heard talking about, yeah, Blexit is going to do all this. Blexit is going to save the black community. We're young. Like the old white conservatives were pro-Candace, but they weren't saying that. Black people weren't saying it. It was young white kids that were like, yeah, Blexit is awesome. Right? So that's what I saw it at. What did you say?
Can I clarify just something for just a quick second? Because Will, you left us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I was going to have
to
it
get
finished,
back to what you were saying.
Yeah,
but,
my computer died. I'm in a pretty bad mood by this point. Not at all in this group, but okay. So go on.
I just want to clarify that there's nothing wrong with your audience being white conservative. If you're a conservative commentator, but just by the nature of our business, the large portion of your audience is going to be white. That is fine. White people, we love you. Some of my best friends are white.
You can say that if you say that about black people, though. But go ahead.
No, I don't want to disparage that. Like there's something wrong with speaking to white people, but the message is the people that follow her think that her message is for black people, and that's
the name.
And it's not. It's for you. It's not for black people. There is nothing that she says that I could take to my liberal friends and family in the hood. Right. And bounce off of and have a discussion. She is a non sequitur. She is a non-starter. The conversation ends as soon as her name comes up. So as far as her being helpful in speaking to black people in whatever way you imagine black people need to be spoken to, it's been unhelpful. So Charles, you made an excellent point. Let her live where she lives. Right. Maybe what her purpose is to make white people feel more empowered to push back against false accusations.
One thing that's really important about that last point, actually, is that there is an upside to saying things that are true that are politically incorrect. I mean, if you're on a college campus right now, the explanation that's given for almost everything is systemic racism, quote unquote. I mean, so black people are 2.2 times as likely to get shot by cops as white people. There must be some deep-seated racism in the criminal justice system. And looking through actual data, I noticed that we're a younger population. We're about 10 years younger on average than whites, and we have about 2.2 times the crime rate the white community does. So adjusting for X eliminates Y. I mean, and this comes up all the time. I mean, like, the SAT is culturally biased. Well, the highest scores on the SAT are Nigerians and Asians. Like, that's just not true. So if you actually look at the things that are used to illustrate kind of this vague, subtle kind of middle-class racism, the gaps themselves vanish when you just adjust for things like how much people study. I mean, for both black and working class white kids, do you have a dad in the home? So I do think that there's some value to stepping up and just sort of strongly saying that. I don't think if you have a message for a black audience, you need to begin it with like, and first I love you, although I don't think you guys are saying that. The question with Candace Owens is just, I mean, and with a lot of commentators, is really just more strategic. Like, you're absolutely right. I guess what I'm saying here is I don't see anything wrong with telling basically non-racist white college kids, look, X% of the black community agrees with you, and it's not racist to say that the police aren't just murdering black people. Charles is right, that can be useful. The question, though, is with branding, if what you're saying is this is the Blexit movement and the focal audience is black people, and that happens not to be the case, you're going to run into some kind of performance issues. I mean, people are eventually going to start wondering why you still got 8% of black people voting for the Republicans. So I think there's a
Right. Oh, go ahead, Kara. I was going to say.
Which part there?
I disagree that the issue is branding. I don't
Yeah,
think
the issue is approach, right? I was going to say that, Kara.
I don't think so.
The issue is
I
the
don't,
approach,
I don't
the
even
way
think
she said
that is the issue I'm talking about here. And I
Okay.
laid this out in this video that I did yesterday too. And what I said was, people ask me all the time when they're coming back at me about my criticism, what do you and Candace disagree on? Well, we don't disagree on a whole lot on the surface, because just what Will said, right? There are issues that are just true. Our issue with where our fathers are and how that's impacted our community, our issue with police brutality, the part that our community plays in the perceptions we allow people to believe about us, all of that, these are true. But when Candace gives you those stats and gives you those talking points, she's not telling you she wants to solve them. She's telling you why you're right to hate black people, why you're right to think that black people are dumb or helpless or trained chimpanzees. That's what she's saying. What I'm saying, if I give you the statistic of 73% of black kids are born into single parent households, I'm not telling you that this is a reason to hate black people. I'm telling you that this is a reason why, because we know what statistics say about graduating high school and living in a home with two parents, that this is a reason why we in the black community should be focused on family things and how we help single parents and how we rally around those who have not had the luxury of being in a partnership and raising their family that way, and why these things have happened to us and how we can change it so that our community is better. That's not what so it's not just branding. It's just talking points. She's just trying to blame people without giving
a lot of the difference here.
Go ahead.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think a lot of the difference here, though, really does come down to, you don't want to say it's a semantic difference. I think your point's basically correct. But it does come down to sort of the presentation of the same facts. Like
the
the
delivery.
fact
That's
that
what I'm saying. It's the way you deliver it.
Okay, delivery is a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it, I think. But I mean, like, the fact that there's a 72% out of wedlock birth rate in the black community, that doesn't have a lot to do with sort of historical conflict with the whites, or at least traditional racism. Like, the fatherlessness rate in the black community per Walter Williams in 1938-45 was like 10%. For whites, it was even better, but it was like 5%. I mean, it was a very small gap. And you saw mass welfare in both black communities and in Appalachian, for example, white communities. You saw this change dramatically. I'm not even sure this is a black issue at this point. I was talking with a Hispanic buddy of mine, and he reminded me the Hispanic rate, Mexican Americans, is about 65%.
Native
so
Americans
we
are the
just
highest.
crossed that. Native American, Native Americans, that is correct. So, I mean, we just crossed that point where more than 50% of new births in the USA, correct me if I'm off by a point or two, but our fathers
high 40s,
out of wedlock.
Out of
Yeah, it's
wedlock.
right
Not
around
necessarily fatherless, but yeah.
Right. It doesn't mean the father's not there.
No
but-
married birth. Yeah. A lot of and again, I think that is valid, but this gets into presentation and delivery again, like no married birth certificate and whatever the cutoff is state by state father. I mean, I agree that there are a lot of great dads that come back in and play their role later on, but that's a pretty good measure. So
it's
the
absolutely
question would
perfectly the best measurement. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question, I think, to some extent, because I don't think any of us in this group dislike black people, and for that matter, our countrymen of other colors. So I guess the question is, to some extent, how to say this effectively. And what I hear a lot of the panel saying is you don't think some of the commentators on the black right do that. Like, it's not going to work at a church or at a gathering of black people.
Well,
or
I'm glad
white
you went there.
liberals, for that matter.
I'm glad you went there because I wanted to go beyond just the Candace thing, and that gives me an opportunity to do that because I think that there's varied approaches anyway, and the fact that people think that the black people have to have the same approach is silly, right? You can be a black conservative and have different approaches. And Candace problem, whether it be delivery, branding, or some other issue, or the fact that she doesn't like black people, whatever the case is, because I don't know anything about the woman. But I don't. I really don't really pay attention
Got
to it.
that one in there at the end.
Right. No, because Kira's basically says she's pretty close to that. So I'm not saying she is, but I want to say that option has been put on the table. But I will defend her in the sense that you say she doesn't offer solutions. Now, I think everybody on this panel does, but I think a very small percentage of people out there, left, right, center, does. I mean, my biggest arguments with the left and the supposed woke movement is all they do is say the country's racist. Because instead of getting in a debate about whether it is, I just go to them and say, okay, you're right. What do we do? They're like, I don't know. I didn't think about that. I'm just mad. So unfortunately, no one really wants to. I mean, I won't say no one, but a very small percentage of the. And these are people like you talk about, Kira. I'm talking about the people with a platform. I'm not just talking about the average person. I'm talking about the person with the radio, TV show, or whatever. They're not talking about solutions. I try to, on my show, to only talk about solutions. So what do we do? Every guest, I'm like, all right, you say that's a problem. What do you do? Because that's what's going to matter. So that is true about her, but I don't think she's alone. But Will made a good point talking about there's, is the problem who you can bring the audience to, or is the problem that you have different ideas? You say, Kira, that with Candace specifically, that on issues you may not disagree with her that much, but it's what you think her actual beliefs are about the black community and things of that nature. But the larger, what we call black conservatives, we all know that you have a name for them, but there are some black conservatives that are being pushed to the front by certain groups or for certain reasons. They have the look, they say things the right way. Like there's a piece, we got to address that. Somebody made Candace, as I think about it as it comes out. So Candace, because let's be real, it's not a knock on Candace, but Kira just said on issues she kind of agrees with her.
Right.
Will writes a lot, writes more than Candace. Will is in different groups all the time. Will travels. Will consults. Why isn't Will the most seen black conservative? And he can talk to people on the left that won't be mad at him. I see liberals who follow Will. So why is it Will on Tucker every single time something happens, right? Why I can name plenty of people, just half the people in 1776, me, Yahya Fanusi, that's plenty of people. But so I'm just saying, not even to knock Candace, there's a reason why she's out there, and I said, I got contacted by somebody a few months ago and they were like, you should be on more XYZ. I said, I'll never be on there because one, I talk about the culture, I don't talk about politics. And I'm not a conservative, I'm not a Republican, and I don't support the GOP, so I'm not going to get on TV and sing Trump's praises. So, I get calls all the time. It's like, this is the topic, and I'm like, this is my views. They say, all right, talk to you later. So and Kira and Will, do you all do enough media to know that someone decides to pick who's going to be the person that's out there? So now you got to shine and do your job when you get the opportunity. There's no knock on any of these people. So people need to understand that it's not like Brandon or Kira or myself or Candace or anybody else has this unique voice whispering to the black community, or a shockingly a new and unique understanding of history or politics. It's just these are the people we decide to put on TV, and that's what happens. So some of these people, they're not talking about solutions. They're there because people like the way they're saying it. So even though the masses don't like the way they're saying it, there's a small group of people with a lot of money and influence who like the way they're delivering it, so they get to speak.
Right.
Right? Anyone? Did I shut you all up?
No, I haven't heard from Shamika in a minute. I was waiting to see what she thought.
Yeah, go, Shamika.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I do think somebody put her there. Who did that? Who said she is the one that needs to be the voice? And it, again, because it's Blexit, it's the voice for black people, or the voice of black people, or she's speaking to black people. Somebody chose her, to be that one. And again, like I was saying earlier, there are a lot of people that I've just come to know since, after November, that have been conservatives for years, that have been here. Why weren't they chosen? How did this new person who just walked away after, Trump was elected become this, golden child, when you've had people who've been living this way and believing in conservative principles for long, long before that?
and
But,
working
but
and
right,
working in the Black
Working.
community and putting in the work.
Mhm.
And the answer to your question, Shamika, is Kanye. Right? One
oh yeah, I
tweet
Right.
from
forgot about
Kanye
that.
West, and even Kanye walked away from that. Even Kanye was like, "Oops, I didn't." But
Right.
that is the power of celebrity,
Right.
and so to be fair, she jumped on that, but even he didn't care for the way she was using their friendship. So I hate to sound accusatory, and I hate to sound, because I think, because I might be a little traumatized by like all of the
All the
comments that come
responses.
in on my
Yeah.
articles
Yeah.
and my videos. So I hate to make this seem petty. I stayed away from it for years, but I just think that this is becoming such a problem. I feel like a bad person for not saying anything about it,
Well,
because this is not helping anything.
but let me ask you this though before I go back to Will, to you and Shamika. Is there an additional component to this with her being a female? Because I don't think Will can speak for himself, but I don't think I get as much comments about Candace as you two
Mhm.
obviously do,
Mhm.
and I don't get people coming to me talking about Candace all the time, and I think that that could be a contributing factor because even though there are few black conservatives that were out there speaking or whatever, a lot of them that were out there that were prominent were,
Mhm.
if you go back 10 years, right, all male, right? Maybe one female. I mean, you just start thinking about them. I can think of one, but most of the ones that everybody would just throw a name, whether it would be people like Shelby Steele and Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell, or if it would be Alan Keyes and even go way back to then, it was always men. So was there something captivating about having a woman, or is there something that with her being a woman that changes the way people respond, the way people I don't know try to defend her or whatever? Is it just the her
Well,
approach?
I think, and maybe I don't know. Maybe Shamika can speak to this as well. But I think part of the thing here, like when Candace and Kim start going at it, everyone's like, "This is a cat fight. This is a cat fight," because it's two women having an argument, and it's not a cat fight. It's not a feud. These are two professional and accomplished women who have a severe disagreement about some certain things. And yes, it might be getting a bit personal, but
Right.
it's not a cat fight. If Tucker Carlson is arguing with Bill Kristol, we're not calling that a cat fight, right? We're respecting both those voices as as educated voices. But when women get into it, if a woman, it's like Beyonce says, I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. And when women get into it, we get labeled all kinds of terrible things. And then the other thing is that I don't want to hear people telling me, uh, why are you feuding? Why we have bigger fish to fry. We have other things to concentrate on. And this is just a distraction. It's like, first of all, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I can think about two different issues at the same time. Second of all, you all aren't saying that to guys like Tucker Carlson when he goes on his show and lambaste Bill Kristol. There's not a whole bunch of people going, "Oh, I wish you guys would just like get along, and why can't you guys? Why are you guys have to tear each other down? We have bigger issues." They're going, "Yeah, tell them." It's something so condescending about like the people just patting us on the head and be like, "You guys are supposed to all get along because you all look the same." I
Right.
find that to be very condescending as well.
But except they don't say it to Candace though.
Right.
Right? They tell you in your video or Kim in her response to Candace that she should, but no one really, very few of them say Candace should.
Yeah.
Right? Shamika? Did you?
Yeah. I'm like, well, I think I called it a cat fight.
That was your ratchet.
We found out who started it.
Inner ratchet.
Will
I
Rock.
mean, because initially I'm trying to think. Oh, my friend had her daughter a graduation party. So it was like I came in late, of all the things that were going on Twitter. And so I was trying to catch up. And I didn't really see a lot of substance in it. Like, as Kira was saying, she's used to really being able to kind of dig deeper on things that she's passionate about. She does. But with the two of them, I didn't see that. It just really seemed very surface. It seemed very petty. And it was like, okay, what's the issue here? And then when it came that, Candace had this big story that she wanted to release, I was like, well, I know she's not going to release that she was a stripper because I had already heard that like a long time ago, because I used to be a stripper. Somebody brought it to me and said, oh, well, Kim used to be a stripper, and they said her husband owned the club. And I hear now Candace is saying it's the manager or whatever. So I was just kind of like, this is so petty. It's high school. It's childish. Like, what's the big
Fair
deal?
enough.
I didn't know it was as deep as what I know now because someone asked me to go and watch Candace's video from last night, and I did. I think it was like 44 minutes, and I had to actually watch it while I was relaxing in the tub. But I didn't know it was, the whole her trying to accuse her of federal crimes, and just from the surface, I thought, well, are you jealous because her titties are bigger? Like, what's the issue?
Of course, that was the first thing you thought. I mean, clearly.
Because
Titty envy.
we can see those, they are pretty, like, the biggest thing on her body.
They're
Uh,
pretty quirky.
Will, would you like to follow the titty envy? Where'd you go?
On
You're on
mute.
mute. You're still on mute.
Yeah, okay, now I'm back. Yeah, I said that is a tough line to come in on, but so I actually think a couple things. First, I will say, I was talking about this with my guys the other day. Like, virtually all of my female friends, whenever something happens involving women, will say, like, there's no equivalent of that for men. I don't always agree with that. Like, I mean, the term that would be used for Tucker Carlson and Crystal would just be dogfight. Like, one of the things that came up in that conversation, a female friend argued there's no equivalent of calling a woman a bitch for a man. And the guy said, well, yeah, there is. You could say that to a man, too, first of all. It's much more offensive. Or you could
Right.
just say, you're a dick, which is the exact linear opposite. So I just want to say that, represent for the fellas a little bit there. But more seriously, in terms of the Kim and Candace thing, I respect Kim a fair amount. I don't have a lot to say about that. I will say a lot of people need to get off Twitter with some of this stuff. In terms of some of the exchanges that I've seen between like the pro and anti-woke movements, you're getting into kind of lawyer territory. And I think that was the final response here, where a statement was issued saying, like, I've had enough of you social media attorneys. I'm calling my lawyer. It was actually pretty witty and well worded. So a lot of that, if you have private problems with someone that are at that adult level, it might be a good idea to give them a call, or something like that. I don't see that much is accomplished by this kind of thing at all. But in terms of what I think was the most interesting question in the last segment, as someone who's at kind of that, J-list level of celebrity, is this question of like, how do people get where they are? And that's a legitimate, fascinating question. I mean, I think with Candace, for example, not to focus entirely on this one person, but it's pretty obvious why there was that appeal that got her the Kanye meeting, that got her onto Rogan, that got her these things that were projecting her into kind of mainstream celebrity. Like, she's attractive, upper middle to upper class, black, and that's considered rare in the conservative space, but also very outspoken, has taken like a lot of fairly hard positions when it comes to the black community. So her brand is sort of alarm clock, as she'd put it, along a whole list of issues in the community that a lot of people in the white conservative space find really appealing. So I think that's how she became kind of a media darling early on. And once you hit that sweet spot for a little bit, it becomes kind of easier to keep it going. One last thing I will say there, though, I think, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this, I think that the more complex, like, your personal brand is, or you are as a person, the harder it is to get famous or to do consistent media. Because for example, I mean, almost everything, like, I'm nerdy but kind of bro-ish. Like, I'm pro-black and I teach at a black college, but I also lean right. I try not to have a set position on issues. I'm a registered political independent. So if Fox, although I have a good relationship with them, but much less CNN, called me and were to ask my opinion on something like reparations, it wouldn't just be like, never, And I think that's very often what you're looking for that 30-second presentation.
And that's fine.
Whereas,
You know
for
what, Will?
example...
That's fine.
No, I'm not.
That's reality, but
Yeah, I'm not saying
it's
that's
just
good or
when
bad.
that person is
Yeah.
asked to speak for the rest of us
Right.
in those sound bites that's the problem.
Of course. Yeah, no, I know. I actually think that this is a problem, to clarify. So, I mean, like, Kira, when you're saying I agree with a lot of these issues in the community, like no excuses, but I also think that there's certain ways to present them that would be more effective. I like black people. I prefer this be said in this fashion. It's going to be a little more difficult to do that from, box on the left on TV. So, with no love or hate, I think Candace is a very good avatar of that kind of TV opinion set. That's why her brand has continued to grow. The question, there are a lot of questions that gets into. I mean, should people brand themselves more simply? Do you like yourself as you are? Should people abandon mass media totally? I don't know. I'll leave you guys with a bunch of useless questions.
Well, I think that
And I just did. Man of
Yeah.
my word.
I think that I get Kira's complaint with her. I think the problem in solving it, we like solutions, is that the solution wouldn't be the Candace, because there's always going to be another Candace. The problem is the people who think that anyone should be speaking for the community, right? I mean, there were rifts
Any
when
one
King,
person, yeah.
well, right, when King was doing the civil rights. I mean, everybody now who's younger just say King, but they don't realize that there was backbiting and arguing then, and they were all going in the same direction. Now we don't even agree on stuff. So how would we all say have one spokesperson? Even if you just confining it to conservatives, we don't all think the same way, right? But most of us can disagree and just be, oh, well, I see what you're saying, because it's mild disagreement. But there's going to be those people out there where I just disagree with everything that person says or their approach or this, that, or the other. And that's even fine. The problem is when a white person or whomever, or the black community who's on the left, sees Kansas and says, see, that is what every conservative person, because that's a problem with you, because, Will writes regular columns. Kira has a podcast. There's other people out there. You're on Twitter every day. You will see them. So the fact that you see Candace and you see all these other people, and they're like, no, I'm going to wade through all those people and say Candace speaks for everybody. When you hear other voices, you know that that's a problem, and most of them don't sound like her. So whatever the problems are with Candace, the true problem are with the people who are adults and dumb enough to think that every black person that's a conservative or considers himself conservative thinks and agrees with Candace.
Right. And let me say, like, I love seeing her sometimes, like when she was doing the hearings and the white women were talking about, racism, and she kind of shut them down. I enjoyed that. But what I don't like, is she speaks for black people, or that she, is doing this great, mighty work, and we all need to just sit there and listen to her. I don't like that thought. I love listening to a lot of different people, and I think there are a lot of different people who should have larger voices, because I think they could actually move the needle, like really actually do work, and it make a difference.
Right.
And
so
that
Kira,
is the thing. At the end of the day,
you got to be short. You got a little time. I want to get to your topic, but go ahead.
I made my peace with it, but I think when you look at Candace as an entertainer, then it all works out, right? If she's just an entertainer, then all she's doing is entertaining you. Those clapter tweets, I look at her as an entertainer. So maybe what we're saying in the end here is really not her that's the problem, it's her stands. It's the people who are like, oh no, she's speaking truth. No, she's entertaining you. Shamika mentioned the phrase "move the needle," and that's not a description that can be applied to her platform.
Right. Gotcha. So we put the Candace to bed, and
Night night.
Kira wanted to talk about the interesting case of the NFL that got very little play because I know we were arguing on other things on Twitter, but it's pretty important. So tell us about the NFL and race norming.
Yeah, have you guys heard about this race norming?
Yeah, I was shocked.
Oh, you don't want to ask Will about that.
Will, you heard about it?
Well, yeah, I heard about it. The the issue with the NFL when it do you guys want to intro this? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
pretty
Kara, go
familiar
ahead.
with
Tell
this,
them
I
what the
guess.
problem
I'll
is.
tell
What
you
the
what race
NFL
norming.
did.
I like to ask because I was on the Babylon Bee podcast the other day and I brought this up and I was like, well, tell me what you guys think race norming is just from the sound of that term. And so they were like, and they had no, like, they went in cold. They had no idea. So like,
Wow,
well,
really?
I guess like maybe normalizing race relations with NFL
Relations.
players. Is that it? Like, it was like,
Wow.
no, race norming is the practice as it pertains to the NFL. It is the practice of devaluing the cognitive abilities of black players in order to evaluate cognitive injuries. So there's a brain injury kind of fund that you can access as a player if you've been harmed in the job, and you can get access to healthcare and stuff like that. Black players are saying they're getting denied at a higher rate than white players because of this measurement called race norming. That is actually an official term that starts their cognitive ability at a lower level than white players, so that it's easier to deny them, because you can say, well, they don't, we can't
weren't-
really tell if they have brain injuries because they're already kind of dumber than the white people. And
Right,
so
they set a lower baseline. Right.
Right.
they set a lower baseline. So this
The-
story drops. AP drops the story, and when it drops, I think this is big. This is huge. And I read the story, and they mentioned it so casually, and I thought this is like a story made for the woke movement, right? Made for Black Lives Matter. So I couldn't
Systemic
understand-
racism.
Yes, I
Which
couldn't
is,
understand
look at
why they
Will.
weren't.
Look at Will.
Yes, I couldn't understand why they weren't talking
It's-
about it more. And I was like, what is going on? And I didn't know what race norming was. So I started doing my own research. As I'm looking into it, I'm like, I can't find white liberals talking about this. And it seems like this is a tailor-made issue. Well, come to find out, the reason why this is just kind of flying under the radar, no one's talking about it, is this is actually a government policy that was set into place by the Jimmy Carter administration in 1979. It was made to help even the playing field for black applicants to government jobs, because he was saying, oh, look, these people aren't as educated, they aren't as smart, but they should have equal access to these government jobs. So what we'll do is we'll lower the bar. When they take these tests to join government ranks, when they take these tests, we're going to start them off at a different baseline than the white applicants, basically to make up for how dumb they are. And it's official government policy. And so the reason why this isn't a huge scandal is because this is touted as a solution to racism. And even the few people that have reported on this issue, even when they were writing, they're actually defending the policy. These NPR writers defending the policy, saying, hey, this was an attempt to cure racism, to fix racism, and conservatives, they don't ever care about fixing racism, so they don't even want to give Carter credit for trying.
We
They don't
gotta
have
let.
any
Sounds
problem
so
with the idea.
familiar.
Well, we gotta let Will get in it, but I was sitting here like chomping
what
at the
it
bit because I love it, because I'm like this, because I knew it was going to end. I just wanted to set it up because it always ends in good intentions of the government, and it proves that all the things that they're fighting for 20 years ago, there's going to be 20 years from now, there's going to be the
Right.
same thing, because they think they're fixing stuff and they're basing it on nonsense.
Because you
But Will,
can't
go
fix
ahead.
a lie with a lie. You can't fix a lie with another lie. You can't fix the lie that black people are dumber than everybody else with the lie that we need to dumb down everything to make black people equal.
Will.
I mean, my honest opinion is that when you look into this stuff, it's almost always way more complicated than it seems on the surface. Like, the reason for the NFL race norming is that, according to the Wonderlic test, like the NFL IQ test, the average black player's score was 8 points or so below the average white player's score. Like, I think, so the whole IQ debate, we're going to do a full show on this. Like, I'm a culturalist on IQ. I don't think there are differences genetically where one group is massively dumber or much less athletic or something like that than another. But there are major differences in cultural training that affect IQ scores. Like, the average Asian IQ score in the USA is like 108. I mean, for both
There's
blacks and
conversation to
southern
have
white.
about the IQ tests themselves.
Yeah. No, well, I actually think the IQ tests work pretty well. Like, every study that's... I have an interest in this as kind of a sideline hobby. Like, every study that's really looked
Which
at
is
test
weird.
bias... Not like a hobby like playing poker, dude, but like every study that's ever looked at whether IQ tests under-predict, like, do black or southern white kids do better in college than the IQ scores would predict, has found no, they're actually pretty fair. Like the highest IQs in the world seem to belong to certain Asian, Jewish, and West African groups. So like IQ is actually pretty complicated. Like why
IQ, that we value IQ. I think
there's
a whole show you could do on that.
Right.
That's a great idea. I'd love to have you back for part of that one. We're going to be talking to some people that are quote-unquote hereditarians, like Bo Wingard, like a geneticist who think that's all bullshit. This is like way down the road. But anyway, like the point is, though, that when you say something like the NFL assumed the average black guy was 8 IQ points below the average white guy, that sounds like just wild racism, old school, guy with a whip stuff. But the reality is that for a bunch of reasons, black players are more likely to come from the South. There are these small but real test differences. That was actually true. Now, the question is, should you assume that when you're doing something like a concussion settlement as opposed to like using the test score for the player? Probably not. That gets into how horrible sports owners have traditionally been to players, which is a whole different conversation. If you ever played some college sports, it's not at all what it's sometimes presented as being. But the basic test difference that they said existed was there. The reason that the left doesn't talk about this, to me, I think, is that they don't want to get into some of these conversations about IQ and about actual standards at all. As you mentioned, and this was broken down exactly accurately by you and the panel, race norming was a left-wing policy for a bunch of years. And race norming simply is, if the average black SAT last year was 950, for whites it was 1,050, and for Asians it was 1,220 or whatever it was, they kicked everybody's ass, you would create a 50th percentile score for each group. So like the average Asian would be a 1,200, white 1,050, black guy 950. So a black guy with a 950 applying for a job would be ranked at the 50th percentile along with a white guy with a 1050. And all the people that supported this were on the political left. So I don't think that people, for say VOPs, are going to want to, one, get into who's been supporting this for 30 years, or two, get into the fact that IQ really does predict things really well. I don't think that's a conversation they want to have at all. In terms of, a big movement right now is dropping standardized testing. 65% of colleges just gave up all standardized tests. So I think this is one they just shied away from, as rapidly as possible. We're not getting into this stuff, the combination of IQ plus athletics, that's just way too objective.
Right. I agree with both of you. I think Will's strongest point is that it's complex. It's not one answer. It's not that I was saying that the outcomes are going to be the same or the inputs. It's more complex than that. So you got to ask the question, but no one wants to have the full conversation about any problem, again, with solutions. So do you lower the standards to get more blacks in? For those of us who say no, then understand that means you won't have as many blacks. But if somebody's going to come and say, well, that's not fair, where's my black quarterback? So do X, Y, Z. So we know we had that. They're not going to want to talk.
God forbid you just fix the education system.
Well, it's going to take them. Well, what do I do? What do I do with
black quarterbacks? Some of the highest IQ scores.
Right.
Real facts.
There you go. But it's like
true.
So it's like they're not going to want to talk about it because of that, though, right? They're not going to want to talk about it because some of the things will fly in the face of what they're pushing for now. I think that's probably the biggest reason. If I say that I have a problem with this and this is racist, then I have to openly say that we lowered the standards to get more blacks in to be favorable to blacks. Regardless of whether Will is right, that it wasn't racist, it was just a fact and they were trying to shore it up. The bottom line is you lowered the bar to get more blacks in. So if I call it racist while I'm currently trying to lower the bar to get more blacks in, that becomes a problem. That's why no one's talking about it. And Shamika.
I agree, but I'm stuck on Will saying that, things are more cultural and not genetic.
Oh, yeah.
Then I'm like,
IQ,
so black men don't have larger penises?
I could actually answer that. I have a large and diverse group of friends.
Okay.
No, I'm doing all right, but I have a large, diverse group of friends. We met each other on stuff.
Which side that is.
So, no. Anyway. The point is, though,
wow.
Leaving all this aside, if you actually want to answer that question, the Journal of Urology actually did a study where they measured 15,000 dicks. I don't know another way to put it. They wanted to look at whether the stereotypes about black, white, and Asian men were true. And the actual article is hilarious. So, like, none of the lengths were what men like to boast about. Like,
Oh,
as
for
I
sure.
recall, it was like,
For sure.
like
No.
whites, average
No.
across all whites, this counts like Italians, whatever, was like 5.6 inches, blacks 5.8, Asians like 5.3. Like, everyone was in that 5-inch range. No one even got to the 6-inch mark. And the article's author, who was a woman, had a lot of fun with this and was saying things like, just remember, there's a lot to be said for oral stimulation. So the answer is, there may be some tiny genetic differences between people, but culture and training, going down sometimes, that stuff makes a lot more of a difference. What's going to make you do, the joking aside, like, what's going to make you do well on tests, like going to a decent school and studying for the test?
Yep.
Like, Asian immigrant kids kick everybody's ass because they study 4 hours a day, to the point where I'm not even sure that's healthy to a certain extent.
Right.
But that's what's going to get those scores boosted. But if you're talking about, like, NFL players ain't stereotyped as being smart. So if you're saying that they're not giving
Even
them
the
the
white
money
ones.
and
Even the white ones.
yeah, these Wonderlic scores weren't brilliant for the white guys either. But when you're saying that they're not paying any of these guys like they'd pay a nuclear physicist, and then there's a little bit more of a cut for some of the black athletes, like, whether or not you think the test may be racist, that's because of the performance on this objective test.
It's not, but this NFL case isn't about their salary. This is about the access they have to the funds for the concussion injuries. This is big concussion fund that the NFL had to establish. So I see your argument, and you're making it very intelligently, but the goalpost is wrong here. What we're talking about is the NFL telling these doctors to use that test to decide how, because they don't want to have to give this money out.
That's just a legal thing.
No.
That's just
They're
them not trying to
still
lose. They don't want to settle.
One sentence. That's a valid correction, but actually they're still assuming that they just have the average IQ for their group. Like, I think they also do this by position, which is why I knew black quarterback. So, like, that's why they think, like, a quarterback would have a higher IQ than a lineman, or like a black player would have a slightly higher IQ than a white player. Because when you go in through that combine, it's like a cattle auction. Like, they measure how high you can jump. That's actually a very polite way of putting it, as a sort of sarcastic
someone already
black
wrote
pussy
that
black.
Other kind of auction.
Slate, Will.
No, I'm saying it.
Slave auction, that's Slate.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say I've originated it, but, like, if you've ever done any of this stuff, even at the high school level, like, you're standing there in your shorts. The point is that I don't think they measure penis length. We're not going to mix topics here. But the point is that they know how high you can jump, fast you can run. They know what your score is on multiple IQ tests. And they're using those averages to condition the payouts. Like, is that sketchy as hell? Yeah, professional sports is full of that kind of thing.
Yeah, but they're trying not to pay.
You break your leg and the next day you're cut. But there is... All I'm saying is that there's a baseline reason for that. They're just not default assuming that certain groups of people are dumb. They brutally test everybody through their entire career.
I don't think
and
the
that
NFL
may be a deeper issue.
I don't think the NFL is assuming black people are dumb. I don't think they think that. I think they're using
They're
that
trying not to
test
pay
so
them.
that they don't have to pay out more money out of this fund, because they know that they have to have $1 billion in this fund at all times. And so the more players they pay out, the more money they have to pay out. This is a fund that is aimed at compensating players who have been cognitively injured during their careers and not being compensated through retirement plans or 401ks, like and through stuff. So what they're saying, the NFL isn't saying that they really believe this, but what they're saying is this is a tool that's available to us to be able to deny these players their rightful compensation for the injuries that they've sustained.
No, well put. But all I'm saying is that they're using their actual average scores, though. They're not just sort of making this up. Like, they did give the test to those people, and those are the average scores by ethnic group.
But they don't have to use
by
those scores
position
at
group.
all to decide whether or not you deserve an injury claim. They don't have to use those
the
at
claim
all.
would
They
be-
decided to use them because they knew how they would work.
Well, if you're looking at punitive damages, though, I think one of the things they'd be assessing right off the bat would be the impact of the injury on future earnings. Now, again, is professional sports brutally predatory? Yeah. But, I mean, their argument would be, we're using the actual average scores on the test to predict future earnings. And I think it would be very easy to spin that as, like, racist slave master NFL just thinks black people are dumb. Like, if we're just saying the NFL is sketchy as hell, like, yeah.
Well, I would
Point
like to leave
one. I mean, I don't disagree with that
But
one.
that's why I couldn't believe that the liberals weren't picking this up, right? Because that is
Oh,
the
yeah.
angle I thought that they would get, right? But
Right.
like I thought you guys for sure would be like, look at the NFL, slave owners, Roger Goodell, fight the
Right.
power. So I was shocked that it wasn't a huge story, and then when I found out why it wasn't a huge story, I think that's a part of the story too.
That would be a great story. I want to leave the topic with this. I mean, these are all great points, but one key thing is this. One thing we know for sure is if the NFL weren't so woke, spending so much money on all their feel good, rainbow flags and 3 anthems and more black people and only black halftime show and all this stuff and raising fists up in the air, maybe they'd be able to double the money in that fund and they'd be able to pay all the players. But I know I got one more topic, but I know Kira's got some stuff she's got to do. So I guess for the first time we can do just a home team and let you go and relax and get out of that hot closet.
I'm good. I have time. I said at the beginning of the show, I asked Charles to keep me to about an hour because I've been working all day. I've been like talking all week long, and can you guys hear my stomach rumbling? I don't know if you can hear it.
That's what that was? I thought it was
like
Shamika's
you
new
can hear it in the
computer.
microphone. Like I haven't eaten. My husband got home. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen like anybody all week in this house because it's been crazy. But I have time. It's not a hard stop. I just wanted to let you know that this is the other stuff I'd like to get to.
You sure? All right, because I wanted to talk. I sent you all an article, and if you get to, so Will made a point earlier in the show that people needed to just get off Twitter, and I think that's great advice. And I sent you all a link, and I think it would be a great suggestion of something we can do, outside to take your mind off of all this infighting. We can watch some TV, and Netflix has some new shows coming up. And I'm gonna go to Shamika first. Shamika, did you see the promo for the new Q Force that's coming out?
I did.
Yeah.
And there's this, the popular, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no.
Yes, so they got this star-studded show coming on with these secret agents who have some other not so secret identities, right? They're all openly, flamboyantly,
Right.
whatever, gay, trans, whatever, LGBT. I mean, I'm sure some of them are mixed. But I thought it was interesting. I guess my take when I first saw it after chuckling was, wait a minute, aren't they stereotyping the community? Aren't they, taking the negative stereotypes of gays and saying this is what we're all like? Because I think the post that I saw was someone saying, I'm gay and this is too much for me, right? So what were your thoughts when you saw it?
I mean, yeah, I get I have a lot of gay friends who are like, oh, okay, this is over the top, but it's comedy, right? Like we do the same with have you ever seen Bebe's Kids?
Well,
Like,
I was going to say that the black thing is right. But,
we do it all the time.
But
Like,
to be fair, when we did it within the community, even if you go to blaxploitation, we thought it was cool. Well, blaxploitation was different because it was the only thing you had. You was just happy to have something. But if you go Baby Kids and all that stuff, a lot of those things we thought it was cool. But when it when it went mainstream, we had acted some kind of way, right? It's like what's the Georgia guy, Atlanta guy with the dress, Medea. When Medea was on the Chitlin circuit and he was doing going across the country in black neighborhoods on stage, we were like, yeah, they were trying. When it went to the movies, some people were like, oh, no.
Oh, that's a clown show.
It's like that stuff you do in mixed company.
I know.
Right.
I don't delineate. I have a background in theater. I'm actually a theater graduate. I'm a theater major.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an actress. I retired to raise a family. But I don't have a problem with stereotypes or this kind of stuff on TV because I believe in the market. And I believe that what people are willing to sit down and watch is what sells. And if Netflix wants to put this on, I know there are some gay people who are going to be like, yeah, this is in-house comedy, and it's really nice to be able to laugh at ourselves. And then I know there are other gay people who are going to be like, this is grossly offensive. I think the whole issue here is that somebody even felt the need to make it in the first place.
Right, because usually you make that stuff because there's a need for it because there are no gay characters out there. Well, they're on every TV
See
show.
what the numbers are. Netflix does not release their ratings, and so we'll probably never know. But it's my suspicion, based on what I know about what the Logo channel did when they tried to launch. Right, Logo is the gay channel. but nobody watches it. They actually had to start running reruns of other shows. They had a lot of gay themed shows on there with gay characters and actors, but it could not take off the ground. Do you know why? Because it does not pay to market to the LGBT community because they make up 1% of consumers.
Right.
So we have this outsized idea that they are important, like statistically speaking, important consumer groups, but that's just smoke and mirrors. I mean, when it comes to the numbers, you cannot sell and succeed being exclusively LGBT. So I'd be interested just to see how the show did.
Right, and I would think for the straights who who want to support gay shows and watch them, it would be like the Air America all over again. Like, we're going to launch this liberal thing, and then people found out, well, they already had that because they can watch other stuff, so they don't or listen to other stuff, so they don't need to listen to it. It's the reason why conservative radio works, because there's no alternative. Well, there's a gay character on every TV show now, so it's not like we needed logo because it's not anywhere. But I want to get to Will and Shamika first, but I want to mention something that you said, talk about what you said about the market and them doing these type of shows. But Will, go ahead. You're on mute again. You got to stay in the show.
I don't think I'm in the target market for this one. I'll just
How so?
say
How
it
so?
again. I mean,
But you know
Well-
a lot about penis sizes, so
well, you know, that's mainly because of heterosexual personal experimentation.
Okay.
But basically, and because I read the article, I am a
the
scientist.
article, right.
But I mean, but in all seriousness, when I looked at this, I actually agree that there's no real harm to this kind of thing. Like, I'm almost never triggered by anything per se. And this actually gets into a whole, like, personal rant of mine about phobias. Like, I'm not scared of trans people or traditional Muslims or whatever. I just often disagree with them.
Right.
You know, so the fact that there's a, you know, comedy show based around animated gay characters, who cares? But I do think that this is an example of kind of corporate woke. Like, when we're all talking about the NFL, and like whether this particular policy is biased or not, the simple fact is this is a business based around brothers and rednecks knocking each other's heads in for money. Like, there are multiple serious injuries every year. People have horrifying broken legs and so on. But instead of just admitting that, like UFC does, they're downplaying the safety element, and there are multiple rainbow flags fluttering around the field, and you know, transgender singers are belting out the anthem. I mean, I view that kind of corporate wokeness as almost offensive. Like, your job is to compete with other brands to take my money as an amoral player. And this seems like kind of an irritating version of that. Like, we brought back the Avengers, but this time they're all gay, Bob. You know, and I watched the trailer, and it was just like bad gay jokes that like my gay friends would be pretty offended by. Yeah, like, it's getting a little hard and tight out here as we're fighting these. It was like, come on, bro, do you have to do that? Like, gay guys don't talk like that. It really was like Bebe's kids, except with big flamboyant dudes with like mustaches. You know, so personally, I'm not the one. I'm not going to watch it. I suspect that no one's going to watch it. And I think we're going to see a lot of this virtue signaling over the next couple of years. Like, she's Palestinian. She has one arm. And they told her she couldn't play Major League Baseball. But, and when I see that, I'm not going to get offended. I'm from a diverse community. I'm just going to change the channel or mute it. Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Or watch it and chuckle.
Right. But I got to go to this then, because you both made a great point. You talked about the market. You talked about not being offended. It's not that I'm offended, but you say it's fine. So let's bring it down a notch. The last topic to pivot to is this big push of this kind of stuff in children's programming. So do you have the same view about the Blues Clues? So I interviewed Christian Toto, who wrote the article in Real Clear Investigations about all this stuff. And he was even like, well, I get it. You know, I'm not anti-gay. So it's fine. But I can see why people will be bothered by it. And I said, well, my concern isn't that. If it was like this TV show and you knew what you were getting, that's fine. But if I got to think Kira with kids gets this. So if I got 2 or 3 kids, and I understand that the nature I'm in now with all this information, I got to sift through it. But the one good thing is my 13-year-old used to watch Blues Clues, and my 8-year-old used to watch it, so I already know what I'm getting. I know what the Blues Clues brand is, so I can sit my little one in front of Blues Clues and go, oh, it's Blues Clues, and go away. So it's not like they're giving you a disclaimer. So do you have the same views about that as Q Force?
It's interesting you bring this up. So I have a very close friend who is a voiceover actress. here in LA area, and she called me the other day and she was like, Kira, I got this audition. Everything's from home now. You can't go into audition, but she's like, all the auditions I get are for woke adult characters in children's cartoons. So she mostly gets work in cartoons now. So she said, I got the, I'm not even going to tell you the show that she got.
Right.
I don't want to bust her out because, you
Right.
know, she's undercover conservative in Hollywood.
right.
But she said, I got this audition for this show. And the show is like a blatantly, it's a cartoon character of a beloved children's show. That's all I'll tell you. And it's a holiday special that will be coming up. So in the show, the main cartoon character has a friend who kind of spouts like regular conservative talking points, like lower taxes or, you know, whatever. And the show is about how wrong the friend is and how everyone has to rally to fix the friend or kick the friend out of the friend group, right? This is a children's show. She says, and she was auditioning for the part of the middle-aged neighbor who knocks sense into this kid. And she said, every audition I get, she said, about probably 9 out of 10 auditions I get to this day for children's programming is all mother of trans kid, mother of, you know, gay twins, neighbor of Black Lives Matter leader, or, you know, she's like, everything is politicized. Every piece of children's entertainment I get to read for, it has a political angle. She basically gets no just straight up auditions. So yeah, this stuff is encroaching. Charles, you put it perfectly. Great, do whatever y'all want. If I know what to expect, great. I won't have my children in front of that program. I'll put her in front of this program. But when everything is infected with this sort of re-education mindset that I don't want as a parent, then yes, I do see it as a problem because, again, the consumer isn't really my child, right? My child does not pay the bills and cannot turn on at a certain age the TV on and off by themselves or have permission to sit. I'm the consumer still. And you are not giving me what I want to consume. So still, yeah, that's a problem for me.
And they're going around you. I want to leave this one piece because you said, I know I keep talking. I'm going to let you two talk. But I got to say, even so, I have a young one. I mean, Will doesn't have kids. Your kids, both of you, your kids are older, I'm assuming, right? So
Yeah.
you got lucky you passed that. I got a 5-year-old.
Yes.
So he's got all the blocks on, filters. He can't do anything, whatever. But now, even when you're down to his age, so he can't watch TV7 stuff. Yet they suggest stuff. So he brought it to me, was like,
Right.
hey, I need to get to this thing, and, you know, the Wi-Fi is not working. And he didn't notice it, but I looked at it. There was, you know, shows you watch, just like they do us. Other suggested show, but they're his age range. And then there was a thing, and it was like, activism and woke. So it was all like, I forgot the title, that wasn't called, but it was all like, you know, all of it wasn't bad, but it was like young Martin Luther King. It was
Yeah.
like how to be an anti-racist, because, you know, they're making Kendi's book to a kid's book, right? So it's all this stuff. And you can't take that off because it's not filtered, because it's not a show, it's just suggested. But
Right.
if he hits it, it'll play because it's in the age range. So you make it where I can't filter it, and now I'm bad because I don't want it in front of them, you know. So I think it's really, really bad. And they say they're not now. It's just arguing about CRT. You can't tell me that's not indoctrination. Will? Shamika, you go.
Well, you know, when I think about children's TV shows, I think back to, like, I can remember being an adult and people would say, well, Bert and Ernie was gay, you know, they were gay. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they say, oh, 2 men sleeping in the same room, you know, they weren't, you know, but I was so young. It wasn't saturating everything around me. So I never looked at Bert and Ernie being gay, you know, but I remember then my daughter, who is 25 now, watching Teletubbies, and she would say, Tinky Winky's gay. And I'm like, you know, and Tinky Winky did just prance around there. He was the only one that had a purse, you know, and I'm just like,
They just came out and said that Tinky Winky is gay. LGBT.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. There was a whole thing, and the
Oh, my
Teletubbies creator
God.
said, "Yep, he's gay," and now he led like a pride parade somewhere. So yeah.
Wow. And my daughter used to
They're
say,
puppets with no
Tinky Winky's
genitals. Like, they
gay.
can't be gay.
Right, exactly.
She used to say that all the time. Tinky Winky's gay. And She had to be like, I don't know,
But
3.
Shamika, this is different. What they're doing on Blues Clues,
Who's
if you saw
Tinky
the
Winky
Blues,
gay with? I mean,
Don't think about it too hard.
there are only like 8 characters in this world, and none of them have a crotch. Like, leave the kids alone. Like, anyway.
So,
but even so that was all suggestive, right? We just think you look at that one, but if your kids think of that, it's because they already know what they're at the age where they know
Right.
what a gay person is, right?
Right.
Because if you show Tinky Winky to a 3-year-old, they won't say Tinky gay. They won't say that, right? You have to be at a certain
she
age.
did. I think she
Not
had,
at 3.
I don't
Stop.
know.
But
She's
look.
25 now. She
Right.
had to be really young, and she would say Tinky Winky's gay. But
But-
maybe gay was a little bit more
Right.
out than when I was young, because
Well,
I
yeah.
never thought Bert and Ernie was gay.
No,
like,
I didn't. But
ever. You know.
So now the Blues Clues thing is a drag queen singing
Yeah,
the
it's
ants,
too much.
singing the ants go marching
my
home,
gosh.
but singing like the family goes marching to rah.
Yeah,
They're
that's
both
too much.
a non-binary. Da. So if you don't get it, they're laying it out. This is 2 moms. This is a boy who doesn't know what he is. This is somebody who's converting to this. That's what they're saying, and they're singing it to you. You know the catchy tune. So the kids
Yeah.
like Billy is non-gender.
It's too
They're
much.
singing a song, right? It's
Too much,
not even
yeah.
suggestive anymore.
Yeah,
Will?
it's too much. I was gonna say this
Oh, go ahead.
too.
Go ahead, Shamika.
But we noticed that everything now is woke because my daughters have a younger brother. He's 2, and he was watching something, and they were singing "Bye Bye Black Sheep." So I'm singing "Bye Bye Black Sheep." Have you? You know, I was enjoying it, but then it goes "Bye Bye Blue Sheep." I mean, it just went through all of this, and I'm like,
Can a sheep be blue? I'm like Will now. There are actually black sheep.
Wow.
and I was just like, this is too much.
I thought the black sheep was strong.
Y'all are doing too much. This is too extra. Stop.
But I thought the black sheep would be good at
Real
being
question.
empowering, because he was
Yeah.
running all the other sheep. He's the one controlling the wool. Who control the wool? The black
Yeah.
sheep.
Yeah, they had to add in the white sheep and everything now. It's
Wow.
bye bye white sheep.
Well, yeah, I guess you got nothing. You just leave the kids alone.
No, actually, I have one. First, I have 2 comments actually. So first, in general, I think corporate wokeness is stupid. I usually change the channel when Spider-Man starts giving a speech about the Puerto Rican Day Parade or something. Like, your job is to spray webs so my little cousin can watch you on the screen. There's a set role for this kind of content. But I think there's a deeper, more serious point, especially for the moms and dads watching. I more than laugh at this stuff. I start objecting to it when it gets harmful. So if you look at the Blues Clues lineup, it wasn't just this is a gay family that happens to be walking with the other families, and there's not all that much said about it. Who cares? One of the families had what looked like a transitioning teenage puppet or whatever. I think they're all supposed to be Irish setters or Australian healers or something, whatever the characters are. But so when you start having puppets with double mastectomies, and they're saying things like watchful waiting just wasn't enough for me. You've taken Sesame Street to a whole new level where you're actually harming the kids.
Right.
You got into large-scale polyamory with one of the Blues Clues things, and
What?
Seriously, one of them was and there's 6 on the wagon because they're poly.
Yeah.
Oh.
Seriously, it was.
Oh, Blues Clues.
Yeah, it was
Lord.
one of them. I guarantee that at least one of them.
Yeah.
No,
They
but
went
it
to
was-
10.
it was
They
two-
went to 10. I stopped at 7, but they went to 10 families, Kira.
Oh my.
Yeah, but it was it was 2 thruples in the standard threesome lovers sense
What?
if I recall correctly, one.
That's crazy.
You were
No, but
blowing her mind,
So it was
Will.
and they're poly, so they all love each other.
I-
And as fun as threesomes may indeed be, I don't think that an Irish setter with a target market of 6-year-old girls should be endorsing them. I do think that there are certain things that, as a gentleman, you should say, don't pitch threesomes to kids. There
Yeah,
really
that-
is a level of kind of
a low bar.
sanity.
And
Very
don't
low
get
bar, yeah.
threesomes
But I
to
mean,
kids if it's 5 inches.
Then all of the men are out of luck.
At all.
Unfortunately.
That's where
I don't-
that's where the transitioning comes in. That would create a whole new class.
No, but Well, first of all, by the way, that was the average for all men. Like, I think there's a lot of boasting and fronting among guys. Like, if
Oh,
you
for
actually
sure.
read
Because
that
they all
paper,
say 9.
Yeah,
9 is the going number.
Do they?
yeah.
I've
Yes,
never
that's
said
what
9.
they say.
It doesn't
You
even
ready?
That's
nine
still a
doesn't even
lie.
sound that fun.
I think that was just a song or something. Nobody really says 9.
They
Do they?
say that.
I mean,
Somebody
They
said
think
it to
that's
me
what
just
women
last
want.
week.
I would
average
run
vag-
away from a
No.
9.
I hate using.
Here he goes.
I mean, the average woman is like 4 inches. So I mean, like, you know. Anyway, this is
You
all
gotta look
just
at it. No,
fantasy.
Will, the best way to put it is that they are made, right? Naturally,
the
we didn't create
average
them, so
guy.
they're raised for a particular reason, right?
this-
To
Is
fit.
this
They're
what
made to
every
fit.
week on this podcast is like? Is this what every?
It's cut the bull.
This
It's
is
whatever
actually one
people
of the
say.
milder weeks.
Wow.
Oh, you missed the one about Will being
on
an
this.
interviewing to be a pimp. You got to go back and watch that one.
Oh, I've been.
That one's
sleeping
actually
on this.
it's actually a pretty lame story, but it's just funny. But
Oh my
the one sentence version of that is that I once put my resume online, and I was a graduate student, and I needed money, and I was very honest about the things that I'd done, like from like martial arts to quantitative research. It was an interesting resume, and I got a call from this company that was like, "Our name is North Loop Escorts. We specialize in Russian and Polish princesses, and we need someone who's like decently tough but smart to manage our girls." And like within 30 seconds, I kind of knew what this was, and was just like toodaloo, hang up the phone. But it was a funny story. I once got interviewed to be a sort of a high class pimp. Said no.
High class stuff. Well, I got to let you all
I've
go. I know
heard-
Will's got to go. Kira's got to eat. I can hear her stomach. Shamika, I think Will.
All I'm saying is saying no wasn't easy.
I would.
And you
Yeah.
blew Kira's mind with the blue
I
clue
can't
thing.
take it, y'all. Listen, you gotta listen. On more serious note, before we go, it is important, parents, that you watch what your kids are watching. You should know what they're watching.
I just
You know,
don't
my
let them
son-
watch anything because it's all broken. It's all broken. It's all woke.
It is.
And that's what
Serious
my voiceover actress friend said. She's not getting any. So whatever's coming to you in the next 6 months to 2 years, she's seen it, and there is nothing hopeful on the horizon for you. So if you find
Right.
something that is wholesome and edifying, hang on to that. But the only way around this is Charles is right, because you can get past the algorithms, and it's to sit and watch with your kid and know what they're watching. My son is 19 now, but he developed a fascination with anime at 9 or 10, and I didn't know anything about anime, and I have no interest in anime, and to this day I still don't. But you know what I did? I sat down and I watched his movies with him, and even the things that seemed a little iffy, at least we had discussions about them, right? Because I knew what he was ingesting. And then when the Anime Expo came to LA, which is the biggest anime expo in the world, I took him and we went together, and I saw what he saw, and that made. I didn't enjoy it. I never did become a fan, but at least I knew what he was consuming. And if there was anything problematic coming up, I was there to discuss it with him. He wasn't alone absorbing the information by himself. So you got to get engaged. And I know everybody has so much to do, and we're all so tired, and, it's tough, but like, you got to get engaged as a parent. There's too many other influences out there.
Well, that's a great way to leave it. I appreciate you, Kira, and thank you for staying a little bit later. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cut the Bull. Definitely check us out next week. Thank you, Shamika. Thank you again, Kira. Thank you, Will. And thank you all for watching and listening. See you next week.
I got a country to say, God bless the US of A, land of the free and the home of the brave.